Hey there everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at IGCSE biology, diseases and immunity. Let's get started. Pathogens. What are pathogens? Pathogens are disease-causing organisms, and these organisms are microorganisms, which means they can only be seen with a microscope. Let me write that down. Microorganisms, right? Now, many diseases are caused by pathogens which enter our body and breed there. Examples are viruses, bacteria, protista, and fungi. These are the main ones, and we have examples of these here. Then we'll look at transmissible diseases. Transmissible diseases, it's a disease which can be passed on from one host to another. What do they mean by a host? A host is any organism which a pathogen lives and reproduces in. When a pathogen gets inside the body system, some pathogens damage our living cells by living in them and using the resources. Other pathogens harm the cell by producing waste products called toxins, which spread around the body and cause symptoms. But what are symptoms? Symptoms are signs that you have a disease or you're affected by illness, which could usually be high temperature, rashes, or anything that makes you feel ill. Toxin is a poisonous substance or chemical that damages our cell, and infection is the entry of pathogens inside the body or a host. Types of pathogen transmission. Now we have two types. We have direct and indirect. Indirect. Direct is through blood and other body fluids such as AIDS and acid food. Indirect contact is not having direct contact with the person with the pathogen. Okay, let's say we have person A here and he meets person B at a restaurant and turns out that person B has a disease which could be transferred. Well, and even if they don't have inter exchange of blood or any body fluid, because the disease is transmissible, it could be passed on. Maybe person A could breathe in droplet containing the pathogen or touch the table that they're sitting on with on the with table in oh my god, table on which person A and B are both sitting on, and maybe person B touches the table and later person A touches it, their chances A could get the disease. Maybe they'll eat from the same plate, or they could, or another way is contact with animals that contain pathogens. This is different. This doesn't have to do anything with A and B. But yeah, that's another way of indirect transmission of pathogens. Then we have controlling the spread of diseases. Clean water supply. Do not drink water from the tap, or instead use RO, which stands for reverse osmosis. Food hygiene. Heat up your food before you eat so that you will kill all the bacteria in it, which reduces the chance of bacteria being in your food once heated, because they would usually be bent up because of the high temperature. Personal hygiene. Be washing your hand before and after eating, and even if you come home from somewhere, washing hands, that's personal hygiene. Waste disposal and sewage treatment. Don't throw your litter or your garbage anywhere on the road. Make sure it's recycled. Make sure the people come and take it away. And yes, that's that. Now we'll look at cholera. Cholera is a transmissible disease caused by bacteria. This is what cholera looks like. It spreads through food and water, which has been contaminated with the feces of an infected person. Living in an unhygienic environment could often lead to the rapid spread of cholera. Um, how does cholera bacteria work? It lives and breeds in the small intestine. The small intestine could look something. Forgive me for my drawing. I am no expert in this. I'm trying. Okay, it doesn't look like this. I'll just explain. The bacteria produces toxin that stimulates the lining of the intestine to secrete chloride ions. Now, what happens? This chloride ions accumulate in the lumen of the small intestine, which increases their concentration, and that decreases the concentration of the water. So now, water flowing in the blood in the lining of the small intestine has a higher water concentration or higher water potential, which causes and due to osmosis, it causes the water from the blood to go into the lumen, increasing the concentration of blood in the lumen. And this causes diarrhea because we know diarrhea is a condition in which feces are discharged from the bowels frequently in a liquid form. Oops, in a liquid form, right? Then we have body defense. Now, this is something you must pay attention to. We have two: chemical and physical barriers. Okay, now this is not something most teachers would teach you. So in the chemical barriers we have mucus and stomach acid, and in the physical barriers we have hair and skin. Mucus traps bacteria in the air and it sweeps it back to the throat and then it gets swallowed. Hair in the nose helps filter out particles and also prevents pathogens from passing into the body. Skin prevents pathogens from entering the body. If the skin is cut or broken, the blood clots there to seal the wound and stop pathogens from entering. Stomach acid, which is hydrochloric acid, which has a pH of 2, which means it's very acidic, plus corrosive, which kills a lot of bacteria in our food. The immune response. Now, these are two definitions you must know. Antibodies is a protein molecule produced by WBCs or white blood cells, which bind to pathogen molecules called antigens and destroy them. Antigens are the bad thing. Antibodies are the one that destroy the bad thing, essentially. Antigens are molecules found on the outside of the pathogen that cause your immune system to produce antibodies against it. Another thing you must know is that for an antibody to destroy an antigen, it must have a complementary shape as mentioned over here. Yeah. Now, the immune response. This is the reaction of the body to produce antibodies due to the presence of antigens, right? So now this is what I was talking about, the complementary shape. This is the shape of the antibody and this is the shape of the antigen. When it fits, so, oops, the other way. When it fits in like this, they have a complementary shape and that allows it to destroy the pathogen. Now, memory cells. When a pathogen enters the body, it meets up with a large of lymphocytes. These lymphocytes recognize the pathogen as something it can destroy and recognizes it as something, if not treated, which could harm the body. This lymphocyte starts to divide rapidly by the process called mitosis, making clones of the cells, and this takes time. This is why it usually takes you 2-3 days to heal up whenever you are infected by a pathogen. Yeah. And what happens is that the lymphocytes secrete their antibody, destroying the pathogen. Okay, I think I didn't mention this. Once the lymphocyte undergo mitosis, which is the division of them or making clones of themselves, almost half of them, let's say 50%, 50% are used to destroy the antigen, and 50% are stored as memory cells. Now, why are they stored as memory cells? They are stored as memory cells so that in case that pathogen enters the body again, these memory cells could be waiting there to destroy him as soon as it enters. And this allows you not to fall ill. That's why even if a pathogen enters your body and you have memory cells, you don't know that, or you don't get sick, or you don't feel that the pathogen entered your body. And due to this, you become immune to that type of pathogen. Okay. Vaccination. Vaccination is a harmless preparation of a dead or inactive or weak pathogen that is injected into the body to induce an immune system. Vaccine contains a weakened, bacteria that normally causes diseases. Now, what happens is that once this weak bacteria enters the body, it doesn't harm the body because it's weak. All it does is causes lymphocytes to undergo mitosis and create memory cells so that God forbid, if the strong pathogen enters the body, the memory cells will be there to will be ready to destroy it as soon as it enters. How does it work? Just explain that. Double vaccination, this has to do with the booster dose. If some pathogens are really, really strong. So just to provide extra doses of the lymphocytes, or like, how do I put it? Yeah, to give extra protection against the pathogen, we sometimes need a booster dose. Booster dose was also given during COVID-19, as many of you may remember. Now, immunity, we have two types: passive and active. Active immunity is the long-term permanent defense against a pathogen due to the antibody production in the body, and it is actively immune to a disease if it has made its own antibodies and it has memory cells stored. You can get active immunity by having the disease and recovering from it, or being vaccinated. Vaccination is the weak pathogen which even essentially have to recover from it. So yeah, passive immunity is the temporary defense against a pathogen by antibodies from another individual, such as a mother to an infant, both in the pregnant stage and the first few months of the baby. A person has passive immunity to a disease if they have been ready-made, if they have been given ready-made antibodies that have been made by another organisms. How can we get passive immunity? Babies get passive immunity across the placenta in the mother's womb and by breastfeeding. Breast milk contains antibodies because the child's immune system is not strong enough to fight the pathogen. That's why the breast milk contains antibodies which can help fight the pathogen if the baby is infected. Yeah, that's what is written here. um yeah, if you're injected with antibodies, you can still get passively immunized. And it remember that passive immunity only lasts for a short time because antibodies acquired will essentially break down. No lymphocyte or memory cells are created, so infection will be treated as the first time every time after giving the injections, right? Vaccination of a high percentage of a population helps to stop the spread of a disease because there are only a few unvaccinated hosts in which a pathogen can reproduce, also known as herd or head vaccination. Okay, we have vaccination for smallpox, measles, polio, and also COVID-19, which recently shook the world. And that's all. I think I pretty much explained everything there is for disease and immunity. If you learned something new, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and comment if you have been vaccinated for COVID-19. Because why not? Till then, see you. Tada.